This is Turn 1 Thoughtseize. I'm Ahren.
And I'm Zach.
And today we are doing our Dominaria set review along with a couple of housekeeping notes about what we've been up to as we've been sort of absent for a little bit. Not a crazy amount of time, but there was a lost episode that is in the archives due to difficulties of the technological variety.
We might be able to salvage it. It could be released someday.
It could be released someday. It could be released perhaps on our upcoming Patreon that people should keep an eye out for.
Ooh, secret episode?
Secret episode. See? Always thinking. So between the last time that we recorded the episode, the lost episode is GP Seattle prep, and I went and it was great. I played Green White Hate Bears. It performed not stunningly, but I did learn a lot, and I met a ton of great people. Like all the usual suspects, all the cosplay folks were great as always. All the Channel Fireball people were great. All of the Wizards people were great. I got to just see a ton of people and meet listeners, and actually played against at least one listener, and met some other people just sort of walking around. And it was nice. People that I wouldn't normally get to see who don't travel to the East Coast, which is obviously where I do the bulk of my events.
Sure.
So it was definitely worth doing, and 10 out of 10 would do again.
Yeah, man, the GP experience is awesome just in general, right?
It was really good. Like, the artists were there. Magali, the woman that did the Chandra Torch of Defiance, like all those,
yep, was
there. And like that booth was bumping open to close every single day. It was like Steve Argyle booth type traffic, which is insane. If you've ever been to an event where he's at, his booth is mobbed constantly. Like it was lined up around the side of the booth and like around the back.
Sure. Yeah, she's awesome. Her art is real good. The Chandra art is amazing, and she's done a couple others that look really good too, so it's not really that surprising.
My big purchase, or my best purchase, I guess. My best purchase was I got the last full playset of artist-proof Mirrodin wrench mines from Pete Venters.
Ooh, okay.
So like I have those and they're signed, and it's just like, it's just cool. Like if you get a chance, if you like that kind of thing, the artist proofs are really special as far as I'm concerned. I think they're really cool. I ended up, GP Hartford was last weekend, so it was like back-to-back GP weekends too, which was crazy. That I don't recommend because it is exhausting.
Oh yeah, man. Yeah, I have done the back-to-back SCGs, and those are brutal. I can't imagine the cross-country flight into an event the next weekend. It sounds miserable.
Yeah, it was rough. But at GP Hartford, not only were they paying, like, one of the vendors was paying $65 cash for Scalding Tarns.
Really?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So I was like, I have a Scalding Tarn. I don't need Scalding Tarns because I almost never play blue-red decks. And even if I did, I already have 8 blue fetches. So I don't need 12 blue fetches, or in this case, 9 blue fetches. So I was like, here you go. And they were like, here's $65. And I was like, thank you. And then I went like right down the row, and Richard Kane Ferguson was like a surprise guest who just like happened to be, I guess he lives in upstate New York, and he just randomly decided to show up. And I was like, holy crap. Solkanar the Swamp Thing is like one of my favorite cards of all time.
Oh, it's a really sweet card.
And he actually still has a handful of Legends proofs.
Oh, that's crazy.
So
did you buy one?
Hell yeah, I did.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I have a very, very exciting piece of my collection now is a Legends artist proof Solkanar the Swamp Thing, or the Swamp King.
Yeah, it's the Swamp King, dude.
Signed by Richard Kane Ferguson.
Whenever you cast a black spell, gain 1 life.
Yep. Yo, 5/5 Swamp Walk is real.
Yeah.
So I guess if I ever did break down and decide to play Commander, that would probably be my Commander.
Oh, it has to be.
Right? I mean, like, what else? What else do you do?
You can play Grixis Soul Sisters, man.
Sure. What the hell? Who cares? Just like Painter Servant.
Sure.
Just make everything black.
Sure.
I also picked up a set of Bridge from Below's.
Ooh, I like that.
And a Krenko Mob Boss because I didn't have one.
Sure.
And as we will get into later, I've gone deep into goblins. So deep.
Some might say too deep, but that's to be seen.
Oh man, I've got plans, baby. I got plans within plans within plans. So that was Hartford. I got to see a bunch of people. I got to see Jadine, who I don't get to see as much anymore, obviously, because she does not live here. She used to live here. Now she lives back in the Midwest.
Yeah, she lives right by me, dude.
Emma. Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, she's good friends with one of my teammates.
Well, there you go.
Yep.
And she came in 16th place.
Yeah, she was killing it with the Juns, right?
Yeah, straight up Junding people. Jundine.
Yeah, that's a girl that loves her some Bloodbird Elves.
I mean, it's a great card.
Oh, it is a great card, no argument.
So I saw her, I saw Emma, I saw obviously all the usual suspects, like for my LGS were all there. And it was tight. It was a little, the quarters were a little tight because it was, the Connecticut Convention Center is a very nice convention center and has a lot of square footage. I guess there was a scheduling thing where, next door, there was also a like animatronic dinosaur exhibit that coincided with we have like a science museum downtown.
Sure.
So that was interesting. I mean, it is what it is. I think the event still, as far as I know, aside from a little hiccup in the beginning, which was shipping related and not planning related, it seemed to go off fine. Everybody was doing all of the things that they were supposed to do. And so that was that. I'm trying to think if I picked up anything else cool there. I don't think so. I didn't get to spend a ton of time.
I saw you post on Twitter about a Gaddock Teague.
Oh, that was actually, I picked that up in Seattle.
Oh, okay.
Because as I was getting like pretty soundly thrashed with green white hate bears, I was like, I need something to fix some stuff. So I added Gaddock Teague, and like I said, at the time, I don't know if this is even still true, like 2 weeks later, but the Judge foil was the same price as the original like pack non-foil. So I was like, why wouldn't I get the Judge foil?
Yeah, snap that Judge foil up, man.
So I did. It was great.
It looks so good.
Oh, it's so good. And what else? What else did I add? Oh, I got another set of Auntie's hovels. I got a Spanish Goblin King and a French Warren Instigator. I got a Russian Magus of the Moat, who turned out to be my like absolute MVP. Because one of the few matches that I did well in was elves, because
they can't beat a Magus of the Moat.
Can't be Magus of the Moat. It's just like, I mean, they could eventually like Shaman of the Pack you to death, because the the guy that I was playing against was he was on Cloudstone Curio.
Sure.
So like it could have happened, but other than that, he was like on a 1-outer. So, and I had like Restoration Angel Flicker Wisp happening.
Yeah, that game's done.
So it was like in your upkeep, Violin Flicker Wisp, take your Elvish Archdruid, and then like next turn, Restoration Angel, bounce the Flicker Wisp, take your land. Like it was just shenanigans. But that was the best of times and the blurst of times.
Sure.
So it was not the correct choice for what I ended up playing against. But I played all side events, so I guess that's an impossible to predict metagame.
Yeah, that's modern, just complete randomness. Yeah. That is the heart of modern.
I did get my my set of GP promo Mutavaults.
Okay.
If you play in the double up events at a GP, you get a promo like you would play it in the main event. And you get double prize tickets. And so I highly recommend them. So I got 2 from that because I played both. I played double up on Saturday and double up on Sunday. And then went to then I just bought the other 2. I got to see both Mox Boarding House locations, which if you're in the area are super dope. What else? I just did like a ton of stuff. So like I said, it was cool. Definitely would do it again. I wouldn't do it the way I did it because the travel arrangements were like a nightmare. But it was 100% my fault. Like I was basically, I valued my time and like aggravation at $0. So like I saved money, quote unquote, but I paid for it in like extra aggravation. And that turns out is not worth it. I do not recommend that. Like pay a little bit of extra money for comfort.
That's fair.
So what did you do while I was gallivanting?
Well, I think we talked about it on the last episode, but for those not in the know of what I played in the Modern Mox that happened about 2-3 weeks ago at this point, I've been texting a Grixis Young Pyromancer list for a while in Modern. I was trying to break Jace, trying to make Jace happen. Failing to get there, actually. Jace is kind of in a rough spot in Modern right now, honestly. And we have been trying a ton of different lists to figure out how we can make Jace good. Came to the conclusion that this Jeskai list, my friend Brandon, top 4 in SCG Classic with, was the best Jace list we could come up with. And then I took that to SCG Milwaukee, and last minute had a change of heart. Wasn't quite happy with the deck. Wasn't quite happy with Jace's positioning. Started to realize people were just not playing Jason Bloodbraid Elf at all. That Modern was just the same Modern we saw, 3-4 weeks ago. And even before the ban, 2 months ago. So I played Mono White Hate Bears, which is the deck I was liking before the unban the most. And it turns out that Modern, while Jason Bloodbraid haven't made a huge impact on the format, Hollow One and Humans actually have. And the format was kind of rough. I played against both of them. I theorized I would have a good matchup against both of them. In my testing, I had a good matchup against both of them. And then when you sat down and played against good players playing those 2 decks, you don't have a good matchup anymore, and they beat you. Because they have a better deck than you do. So, yeah. I think it was a poor choice to play Mono White, but SCG was a ton of fun. Got to meet some listeners. Got to see some people do really well in the event. So It's a really, really cool time. Every SCG event you go to is a good time, honestly.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean that's what I was up to. Played in an RPTQ last weekend. One of my good friends actually queued for the Pro Tour.
Nice.
I grinded out a very, very medium 5-3 finish. So
okay.
Yep.
I don't know a lot about the RPTQ system, but my guess is that does not include a Pro Tour invite.
No, you have to top 8. It was a 200-person event on Magic Online.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, and it's a...
All right, yeah, 5-3 is not going to do it.
No.
It's 200 people.
It was a sealed event, and my sealed pool was really medium. I had some good dinosaurs and a Regisaur Alpha, but if you know anything about the format...
You didn't have a Profane Procession?
I did not have a Profane Procession. I did not have a Tetsamok. Right. And
so there you go.
I did not have a Hadana's Climb, and those are the 3 best cards, so that was rough. I was pretty proud of my friend, though. His name's Mike Bashir. Just totally crushed it with a Captain's Hook. That was the only good rare in his whole pool. Just played a bunch of 1 and 2 drops and a Captain's Hook and got there, so good on him.
Oh.
And congrats for his Pro Tour invite.
Nice. You should get him a little Captain Hook thing to bring with him to the Pro Tour.
That actually would be kind of sweet. Totally should.
Just saying.
Yeah, hey.
All right. We're going to do a very quick metagame update kind of thing. Post GP Seattle, post GP Hartford. And then we're going to get into some
Dominaria.
Get into the Dominaria. Oh man, there's so much stuff. Like this, seriously, this for me, and obviously like my list of what I think is playable is always bigger than yours.
Sure.
But I could seriously, we could do a 4-hour show on just like every cool little pickup for every weird deck because there's a ton of them.
Dude, I agree with you on that. There's a lot going on in this set. There's a lot of flavor. There's a lot of cool throwbacks, but in my opinion, the actual hard-hitting modern cards, there's not as many hard hitters, I guess, I would say. I mean, yeah. There's no dig through time, there's no treasure cruise, there's no immediate, there's nothing of that caliber, I guess, but there is definitely some role players in the set.
Everything right now, in terms of top decks, are extremely fast, extremely linear, and so you basically need to either play one of those decks better than the person that is across the table from you, or you need to just come up with like a super duper metagame deck, which is still not 100% to be better than just playing one of these other decks.
Yeah, I mean, what we're seeing right now, especially after GP Hartford, is just how linear the format has become, with humans just being a brutal fair deck. It's so good at being fair, and Hollow One is just so quick and unfair, I guess. It's not unfair in the sense it's doing like really unfair combos, but it just, when you play against it, the randomness just feels very unfair, I guess.
Well, it's disruptive. Like Burning Inquiry is a ridiculous card.
Yep.
Like making your opponent discard 3 cards for 1 mana is not a thing that would happen normally.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Because even, like they get to draw 3 cards, like who cares? Especially if you do it on turn 1, they chose to keep those cards for a reason. So having them basically like soft mulligan maybe half of the cards that they decided to keep is rough.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it can be brutal. Burning Inquiry is a really disruptive card, as it turns out. And
then you get your free wins, like occasionally, right? Like we talk about this all the time, like a really, really competitive deck will sometimes, part of that is you just get free wins. So like sometimes it's Blood Moon, sometimes it's, Kolaghan's Command, sometimes it's just something that your opponent can't beat. And sometimes the thing that your opponent can't beat is 8 power on turn 1.
Yeah, and that deck does it. So yeah, we're seeing these linear decks just totally take over the format, essentially. Not that Modern wasn't linear generally before, like most of the history of the format has said, be linear, but recently it's been less linear, with Death Shadow kind of playing this fair interactive game, in the sense that Death Shadow was fair and interactive. There were definitely times where it didn't feel that way, but there's a lot of times where it's casting Thoughtseize and killing your creatures, so that deck did feel more fair and interactive, and we've been in this maybe year-long pattern of that kind of being the default best deck in Modern, and it's just not really even on the radar anymore. It just has been supplanted by Hollow One. Hollow One is just doing what Death Shadow wanted to do, but doing it better, I guess. Just has more cheap threats. It doesn't have to hurt itself. It gets to play ridiculous Disruption and Blood Moon and Burning Inquiries, so...
Yeah, I guess if you were looking for the best Gurmag Angler deck in the format, it's definitely Hollow One, and it's no longer Grixis Death Shadow.
Oh yeah, Hollow One is taking over, and it looks like we have a new top five best decks in Modern right now. To me, the top 5 is a pretty clear Hollow One, Humans, Boggles, Affinity, and Storm. And then we have, 5 or 6 other linear decks that are like tier 1.5 right now, that just all happen to have a pretty bad Humans matchup. And random bad matchups against some of the other decks in that tier 1, so...
well, that's like your other fast combo decks. So like KCI, Amulet, Adnaz, Goryo's Vengeance, like those kinds of decks that if they can either race or have a main deck answer to at least 1, possibly 2 meddling mages, then they will do fine against Humans, because they're gonna come out of the gates so fast that it's not going to matter. Or like they only have 1 meddling mage and it only names 1 thing, you kill it, or you just go off, find a way to go off without it. Like that's all reasonable stuff.
Yeah, I mean, these decks can definitely beat Humans, but they just on the whole struggle with the deck, because you'll notice if you look at all those decks you just named, KCI, Amulet, Ad Nauseam, Goryo's Vengeance, they're all very powerful, linear, and aggressive, but they're all named after 1 card. When you get paired up against them, if you know what the deck's name is, then it's pretty easy to also name with Meddling Mage. The one exception being Amulet, where you name Primeval Titan, for the record.
Sure. Yes. Yeah, I mean, if I'm playing Humans and I sit down across from somebody and like I'm on the draw and they go Temple of Malice tapped, the very first thing I'm going to do is just like windmill slam a Meddling Mage naming Goryo's Vengeance.
Yeah, absolutely.
Boom, done.
And they're going to have trouble with that because their deck can't win without that card. I mean, they can, but you know what I'm saying. That
it's really hard.
It's really hard to not be able to use your marquee card while getting hit by a Mantis Rider, right?
Yeah, right, yeah, exactly.
So
a Mantis Rider that's getting bigger every single turn when like Thali's Lieutenants and stuff are coming into play. Like,
yep. So yeah, what we're seeing right now is the fair decks struggle, and really the fair decks just have struggled in Modern for a long time. We thought Jace and Bloodbraid Elf were going to kind of make them too good. That was, the prevailing opinion from a lot of people, and as it turns out...
Not even a little bit.
Yeah, as it turns out, Modern's so linear that they're just not even really showing up, which I think is going to kind of erode over time. I think they'll start finding their niche and becoming players in the format, but until people really figure out how to build those decks and really figure out how to beat all of these linear aggressive decks that are coming to the table right now, it's going to be time to, or it probably is time for you to leave your, interaction at the kitchen table and, show up to your next Modern event playing something linear. So, as much as it pains me, it might be time to pick up some Humans or some Hollow Ones.
Sure. I mean, the other thing, too, is I don't know if people have fully digested the strategies for playing against Hollow One and Humans, because, like, when you think about it, those decks are still really new. I mean, both of those decks, I would their first big finishes were like less than a year ago.
Oh, absolutely.
You know,
even they're like within 6 months.
Yeah. So I mean, these decks are really like very, very new, and
I mean,
people are just like,
if you think about it, neither of these decks even existed until Ixalan came out, which is like the current set and standard, essentially current block.
Yeah, that's true. And so if you do want to try and like tweak your existing deck, I highly recommend having main deck artifact, preferably artifact and enchantment removal, but definitely artifact removal. Like a Braid, I think, is all-star right now. I played Kasali Pride Mage in Green White Hate Bears, and he was actually like one of the best cards, because it was just that, right? It was an answer to just any miscellaneous permanent. Pride Mage, bang, 1 mana, blow it up.
Yeah, no, Pride Mage is great. A Braid is great. Just these permanents or cards that can kill a hollow one, like a fast hollow one, but at the same time trade for, a meddling mage or Thalia's Lieutenant, maybe Reflector Mage. All these cards, like these things that have value in different matchups, is just very important right now. So if you're gonna play fair, and even if you're not playing fair, like I think a Braid is quickly becoming a modern staple, and I think it should be played in a lot more decks than are playing it currently. Like I think the Storm deck should be picking up a Braid at this point.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I also like I'm not above like putting Magma Spray back in the side. Like that hasn't been a thing for a while, but if you can lock down, if you have the hollow ones under control with a Braids in the main deck, and then in the side you bring in Magma Sprays for Bloodghast and Flamewake Phoenix, then you have a lot of the deck taken care of. Like at that point, you're just worrying about like Gurmag Angler, who you can chump block for days and who comes out like in a predictable amount of time. Like it's fast, but it's not necessarily faster than other decks that have existed. So I think you can sort of play block and tackle and still execute your game plan as long as you have answers for these other sort of like oddball threats.
Sure.
Anger of the Gods is great right now.
I can confirm on that, actually. I just 5-0'd with a Blue Moon deck, playing both a Braid and Anger of the Gods, and it was great.
There you go. Settle the Wreckage is also great. Like that's, whatever. You can against humans, it's like an insane blowout because they only run like 2 basics. So whatever. So it's basically just a free roll for that. And then, same thing. Like a lot of these decks run very few basics. So the drawback for Settle the Wreckage really isn't that great. I haven't decided if it's good or not. I don't know if it is.
What, Settle the Wreckage?
No. Settle the Wreckage is great. What I'm thinking is Declaration Stone.
Okay.
Because a lot of these decks, like especially Humans and Hollow One, are just like running a lot of redundant threats. So, they'll have a board that has 3 Mantis Riders. So, like,
well,
you can.
We talked about this for my Mono White Hate Bears deck, actually. I thought Declaration Stone was very good when I was building the deck. One of the marquee cards of Humans right now that really pushed that deck over the edge is Phantasmal Image, and when it copies a creature, it has the same name as the one it's copying. So,
oh, interesting.
Yeah, so it can be a really big blowout against Humans. They also don't always have the mana to crack the clues, so it can be quite good against Humans. Problem is that they play Aether Violent at sorcery speed, so it's kind of brutal.
Sure.
It can be really good against Hollow One. Just take care of a bunch of Bloodghast and a bunch of Phoenixes or whatever. I think the card is good. It definitely has its downsides, but I think it should see more play than it does. And I also like Maelstrom Pulse right now, but at the same time, like, all of these cards are reactive, and it's just like, when the proactive decks are so good at what they're doing and they're so diverse, it's like you should be proactive right now, but I think this is like a key piece of the puzzle, right? Like, I think we're getting there. It's like I don't know. Maybe Declaration in Stone is part of the answer, and it could be, but I don't think it's there yet.
Yeah, like I said, I'm not sure. I do not have any other than like a gut feeling that it could be, like you said, like a piece of the strategy. Like, obviously it's not like, oh, I'm gonna like main deck this, or I'm gonna put 4 in my sideboard. Like, it's not there, but I feel like it's a tool to have and like a tool to be aware of, because it was kind of like, it was premier removal in standard, and a lot of times that doesn't make the jump into eternal formats.
Sure.
But like this as a sort of like mini Maelstrom Pulse for creatures,
well,
at a very economical mana cost.
Yeah, and Declaration Stone does have an advantage. Like, it gets better the more linear the format becomes, right? This is probably like one of the best it's ever been, in the sense that if games are over by turn 4 or turn 5, like if that's the scenario you're in, then it's very unlikely that they're going to have time to spend mana to crack all the clues that you give them from the card, right? So if you can ever get a 2-for-1 with it, then it's generally going to actually be a 2-for-1. It's a very good tempo card. So I think it could be pretty awesome. What deck it goes into, we don't know. It's still probably worse than Path, but if you're playing Boggles and you wanted like a 5th Path to Exile, it's possible that one's right. I don't know.
That I don't know. I really like it against like game 2 against Storm.
Sure.
And they're like, oh, empty for 10, and you're like, okay, deck and stone, and you get nothing.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
They only get a clue for non-token creatures.
Yep.
So you just completely wreck them and then move on.
I mean, maybe humans could play it. Seems unlikely. They have trouble casting colored spells, but they do. Of the colors they make, white is the most common one, so maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know.
The other stuff is just general sideboards that are available to most decks. Torpor Orb is very good. Torpor Orb shuts off basically the entire humans deck.
It's mostly just a humans hate card. Doesn't really do very much against some of the other decks, but it's awesome against humans.
Yeah. Ensnaring Bridge is really good against everything except Storm and Burn. So if you have that, obviously you're going to run into presumably a little more main deck artifact hate, but I don't know that you're going to run into so much main deck artifact hate that like they're going to be able to answer the second Ensnaring Bridge.
Sure. No, I think Ensnaring Bridge is great right now. It's a card I actually love.
Trinisphere. It very notable that the way that Trinisphere works is it forces it makes the cost 3 after any cost reduction. So anything that makes a spell cost more, and then anything that makes a spell cost less, and then you get whatever that mana cost is, and then if it's less than 3, it becomes 3. So your hollow ones, your free hollow ones, are always going to cost 3, no matter how many cards you discard.
Yep. Your Storm deck is never beating this card.
Well, and yeah, I mean, that's obvious. Edicts, if you can run them. I'm trying to think. So like Smallpox, Liliana,
I think
Geth's Verdict.
Edicts are interesting to me right now. I think they're in a spot where they can be powerful, but you can't just play Edicts. Like right now you have to play like Sweepers and Edicts if you want an Edict, which is a reasonable strategy.
Yeah. I mean, you can't run an Edict, right? Like I wouldn't say run a whatever the sorcery speed diabolic edict is from 10th edition, his name I can't remember. That or Geth's Verdict or something like that, and have it just be like, okay, I'm gonna beat Bogles. They have answers for that. Like they have Dryad Arbor to take care of the first one. they probably have a second creature to take care of the second one.
Well, they're even...
You need to just keep overloading them.
I mean, they're even main decking Leyline of Sanctity now, so you can't even edict them some of the time, which is tough.
Yeah, the symmetrical effects really shine there.
Yeah, I mean, Smallpox will get them.
Smallpox will get them, especially if, you know, their weakness is their mana base is trash.
Yeah, Boggle's mana base is not good for being just a 2-color deck.
So, you know, they're on... If they go, like, they'll keep an opening hand that's like Leyline, 1 land, you know, creature, aura, whatever. And they just go, right, like, Temple Garden, Gladecover Scout. And then that's their, right, and then they're just casting, like, 1 mana enchantments.
Sure.
If you blow up that land, they're on, like, 15... you know, maybe mana producing lands after that. And that's not a great, like, get there scenario when you can't do anything else. So, and it also shuts off their, like, one of the shenanigan is, you know, they'll leave a fetch uncracked and then go get a Dryad Arbor and sack that. You can't do that if you have no lands. All I'm saying.
Yeah, it's tough.
Also, I am not above playing Back to Nature. Just good old fashioned 1 and a green, instant speed, destroy all enchantments.
Yeah, I mean, if you really want to beat Boggles, you can Back to Nature him. My problem with the card is it doesn't really get anything else, but 2 mana to kill a Blood Moon's never bad, so.
Yeah, I mean, it's right, like, you figure, like, Blood Moon, everything in Boggles, Eidolon the Great Revel, Courser Crewfig, like random coursers. You know, I mean, there's not there are enough targets for it, and I guess in a deck that is going to be playing that is probably like maybe some like green white X or green black X. Like Leyline of the Void is a big problem for those decks.
Sure.
You know, it's like Maelstrom Pulse or bust to get rid of it if your opponent has it in their opener, and many of those decks have a graveyard component that is important. So I don't think that playing 1 probably is out of the question, along with some other either Naturalize or like Unravel the Ether effect.
No, I mean, I'm with you. If you want to play Back to Nature, that's fine with me right now. Someone's got to beat those Boggles, the Boggly Menace.
Yep. Get them. We can drive them out of the format by just playing Back to Nature.
Sure.
All right, so on to Dominaria. Man. There is a lot of stuff. So, first of all, the set looks amazing. Everything about it is just like so pitch perfect. I'm leaving my house for a pre-release. That has not happened in a long time.
Really?
I'm old.
Okay, that's fair.
Man. You know, like getting up at midnight is...
Oh, you're actually doing the midnight?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's...
I mean, if I'm going to do...
That's crazy, dude. I can't do the midnight. None of that.
Yeah, if I'm going to go to a pre-release, it's going to be a midnight.
Okay.
So, like, you know, the last... however many, I can't remember the last one that I went to. It was probably like Cons Block.
Sure.
But I will be there with bells on.
Okay.
For this.
Oh yeah, I will never do a midnight one, but the Saturday morning pre-release is like my favorite event I do in Magic. I love it. Just get to meet a bunch of, you know, people who aren't super serious, play some games, have a ton of fun, like play with a bunch of new cards. I don't know. I love it.
So to give everybody an idea of how excited I am for this set, I picked out 40 cards that I thought were good enough to see play in Modern somewhere. Zach's list, shorter.
Quite a bit shorter.
by like approximately a factor of 7, but no less enthusiastic.
No, I mean, I like some of the cards. My thing is there aren't modern defining cards here, in my opinion. There are definitely some good cards, but there isn't a hollow one. There's no Search for Azcanta. There's no, Krark Clan Ironworks, if you will. Primeval Titans.
Sure.
I don't see cards like that in this set, but at the same time, I didn't think Hollow One was that kind of card, and it turned out to be that kind of card, so you never know.
We also have Blake from Wizards was gracious enough to send us the official Wizards pronunciation guide. So we will make sure that you do not sound like a clod at your pre-release, as you will have the canon correct pronunciations for everything.
I'm still going to pronounce it Hoira, by the way. Just
whatever. I mean, I can't stop you. I'm just saying that we have the correct pronunciations. Whether you choose to use it, I guess it's up to you.
That's fair.
So I'm just gonna jump in. Like, we have a ton to go over, but this was one of the very first ones that jumped out to me. Shalai, Voice of Plenty, 3 and a white, legendary creature, angel, 3/4 flyer. You, planeswalkers you control, and other creatures you control have hexproof, and has an activated ability, 4 green, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control, and that includes her. It's each creature, not each other creature.
Yeah.
So I think in any core deck, Eldritch Evolution deck, green-white value deck, like any deck that ever had a space for a Sigarda, I think this is slam.
Oh, this card's great, man. This is one of the better modern cards in the set, in my opinion. And it, anytime you can turn Chord of Calling into a counterspell for anything Storm's doing, generally pretty good. And you tack on the fact that it has a Gavany Township activated ability, which any deck with Mana Dorks is interested in. It's going to see some play. It's a flyer. It has a lot, we see a Boggles deck main decking Leyline of Sanctity right now, and that's for a reason. There are a lot of just random cards in this format where just you having hexproof just turns out to be very nice. And I don't know how Burn beats this card. It just is so hard for them to deal with a 3/4. And they just can't kill you with this in play, so
yeah, it's like double lightning bolt or bust, and if they have Mana Dorks, they will likely be able to activate the ability the turn after this comes into play.
Yep.
So you have like a very small window to actually double bolt kill it.
Yeah, and just like as an example of how strange you having hexproof, how strangely effective it can be. It's imagine you're playing against Lantern Control as a green-white creature deck, and you just think you're locked out to bridge, or you can control your draw step. Well, somehow you get to Chord for Shalai, and now all of a sudden they can't control your draw step anymore because they can't use Codex Shredder against you. So,
right,
it seems corner case, but this text is very powerful, and the fact that you can tutor for it as a one-of in your deck is awesome. It makes it very strong.
Yes. All right. Next, Garna the Blood Flame. We're just jumping around, by the way. There's no rhyme or reason to this other than the order that I happened to open the tabs. So if you're looking for an organized, discussion of the cards in terms of color, mana cost, that's not going to happen. Just be excited with us, I guess is what I'm saying. Garner the Blood Flame, 3 black-red for a 3/3 with flash, legendary, human warrior, relevant creature types, whatever. When Garner the Blood Flame enters the battlefield, return to your hand all creature cards in your graveyard that were put there from anywhere this turn, and other creatures you control have haste. I don't think a fair deck wants to play this. But I think that Living End could be interested in this card. My experience of playing Living End is that when you lose, it is because your creatures don't have haste. So if you're forced to go off at sorcery speed, there's like a window for your opponent to have an answer. And if they can then back that answer up with a threat, it's very difficult to win. Or can be very difficult to win. I mean, it's not like 0%, but ideally you want to go off at their end step or something like that, where you'll be able to just untap and attack. Having Garna in your graveyard, so it's weird. If you have creatures in play when you cast Living End, those creatures get exiled. The creatures in your graveyard come back, and then the creatures that were exiled get sacrificed. Right? Is that the progression?
Yes.
So basically, if this was in your graveyard, it would come back to Living End, and then all of the creatures that you had that were in play would go back to your hand, and then everything else would have haste. So you basically would get back probably a lot of the cards that generally end up in the graveyard and Living End are fairly impactful. So it's stuff like Fulminator Mage, Fairy Macabre especially. And then you can just pummel in, kill everybody.
Look, I think you've nailed all of this about Living End. My only issue with the card in that deck is it's hard to get it into your graveyard. There's no cheaty cycle. There's no this has a discard effect. It just you're paying 5 mana for it. That's happening. So I think it could have a home in the deck. Maybe it's more like a sideboard card. I don't know exactly what you want it for, but it is the text box it has on it is awesome in the Living End deck. So if it turns out that it's worth it, then it would be a very easy fit for the deck. The question is, how much do you want to contort the deck to, put this 5-drop in it, right? Because the deck is not lacking 5-drops. That is not something Living End is looking for currently.
Right.
But
you're looking. There has to be a way.
Well, there is certainly ways to do it. Like your Living End deck, maybe you're playing blue now. Maybe that's the deal, right? Like you're playing blue for what's the enchantment from As Foretold. Yep. Playing some As Foretold, and then you're playing Champion of Wits too, so you can get more stuff in your graveyard. I don't know. It's a possibility. There are things you could do, but Living End hasn't been putting up results lately, so maybe it's time for an upgrade. Maybe this is what it needs, but we will have to see. We'll have to see if this fits. But the text box is powerful for sure.
All right, a card that has caused some debate as to its potential usefulness, and also the way that its character is depicted, which is stupid. Not the way the character is depicted, the fact that people are complaining about it. Like, figure your life out. Grand Warlord Rada, 2 red, green, 3/4 legendary elf warrior with haste. Whenever one or more creatures you control attack, add that much mana in any combination of red and or green, and until the end of turn, you don't lose this mana as steps and phases end. I am all about this in red-green Eldrazi. I am all about this in any deck that runs that's like aggressively slanted, that also runs Scavenging Ooze. And the way that the activated ability works is, or the triggered ability works is, after you declare attackers, this mana goes into your mana pool, and then you have priority again before blocks and before damage. So if you attack with 2 creatures, let's say, like her and somebody else, You swing in with them, and you add red-green to your pool. And then declare blocks. You go a Tarkus command, give everybody +1/+1, and put a land from your hand into play. It's a mountain. You tap the mountain, you bolt your opponent, and kill them. Or kill blocker, kill a creature. I mean, there's 100 permutations of that, which sort of they scale in ridiculousness. Because you could certainly be like, oh, okay, I do this with a handful of tokens, and then I play Tarkus command, Domi for 3, drop a Cassic Wolf Run out of my hand, give something, whatever, +X and trample, and, do that for lethal.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know about the Tarkus command. I could see it fitting with that, but my thought was that you want to play this with crazy mana sinks, and I think it could definitely have a home in Modern. I think we've seen kind of like a 3-color Elves deck pop up recently that was, kind of splashing red for Bloodbraid Elf and black for Shaman of the Pack. And I think straight out of Human's book, we have enough lands that are tribal now that you could get away with playing a bunch of different colored elves, essentially. And Elves even has more with Giltleaf Palace, so I think you could put this in an elf deck, and it's quite interesting there in the sense that you can use it to pump Azuri and just get more overruns with your team, which is really powerful, especially because you have a bunch of 1/1s attacking. So it makes a ton of mana for all the 1/1s attacking, and then you get to pump Azuri twice or something, which is insane.
Right. You can also use that mana to cord for a lord.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of stuff. Just getting a bunch of mana in Modern is awesome, right? There's a ton of stuff you can do with it. And then you mentioned the other card that I thought it was really good with, which is Kessig Wolf Run. I think it's a really good call. This could just kill somebody with a Kessig Wolf Run. So,
yep.
And it makes blocks impossible. Like, if you attack with this and 4 creatures and you have a Kessig in play, it's like, what do they block that they don't die?
Right. Yep. No, it's this card is great. Would I play it over Huntmaster and regular Jund? No, obviously not. But I'm not willing to not try one because, like I said,
I really don't think Jund is the place for it. This is the type of card where it's asking you to do specific things and rewards you for doing those things, right? And it's it is really saying you want to go wide and have a way to use mana once you've gone wide. So to me, Elves is kind of the perfect home for it.
Sure. Well, I'm thinking Rabble Master Jund, aggro Jund.
Sure, it actually,
right, where you have
it does pair very well with Rabble Master. I agree with that.
Yep. So there you go. Bang. Next, Lich's Mastery. I'm going to let you take this one because you put this on the list. And strangely, I did not put this on the list because this card was basically designed with me in mind. And I just do not think it is playable at all. So
that's fair.
Take it away.
So Lich's Mastery is a legendary enchantment with the mana cost of 3 black, black, black. So 6 mana total. And it says it has hexproof. So it's a legendary enchantment that has hexproof. You can't disenchant this, essentially. It says on it that you can't lose the game, which is a powerful line of text to have in Modern. It says whenever you gain life, draw that many cards, which I am also in for. It's a very powerful line of text to have in Modern.
Sure.
And then it says whenever you lose life, for each 1 life you lost, exile a permanent you control or a card from your hand or graveyard. That one not as awesome. That one's can be kind of problematic, but if the card just had the first 2 lines of text, it would be ridiculous. So it has to have a downside, right? And it says when Lich's Mastery leaves the battlefield, you lose the game. So this is really bad against enchantment edicts, but I can't really think of any of them in Modern.
Dramoka's
Command is the only one, so you really don't want to play against the Dramoka's Command deck with this card. But
or Back to Nature.
Ooh, Back to Nature would be a blowout. But so the text box on this card is doing some things that are very, very easy to abuse. And the whenever you lose life clause looks horrible, but it also says exile a card from your graveyard, which is abusable if you've drawn a bunch of cards, right? So I don't have a home for it yet, but this is the type of card that screams break me. And like it just pairs so well with so many cards that exist in Modern right now. Like the You Can't Lose the Game goes so nicely with packs. Like you can play Pact Negation, Slaughter Pact with it. Whenever you gain life, draw that many cards clause pairs very well with anything that gains life, which are a number of things, but
yeah, it does not work with Spoils of the Vault or Ad Nauseam. So
not good with those, and that is the type of deck that you would want, but that deck also doesn't have a way to gain life, which is what this card is looking for, right? It's asking you to gain life so that you can draw a bunch of cards. So we don't know where exactly that's going to come into play, but there's a deck like Soul Sisters could be interested in this. We don't fully. I'm not sure that it is, but
man. I'm trying to think of the only enchantment reanimator spell that I can think of is Starfield of Nyx.
Yeah, Starfield of Nyx is kind of sweet with. There are like Loyal Retainers. I don't think that's Modern legal, but that's a good one. It could go well with like an Academy Rector. Again, these are legacy cards, but if we find ways to enable it with cards like that, it is powerful. Like the text on it is powerful. So I'm not saying this is a shoe-in for a Modern card, but it has the potential to be.
It looks like. Oh, okay. So, man, if you want to go deep, right, you can. Through the Breach, Silent Sentinel, which is 5 white 4/6 flyer. Whenever it attacks, you can return an enchantment from your graveyard to the battlefield. So you can Through the Breach on turn 3 with Rituals, attack with Silent Sentinel, get in for 4, get your.
Look, I'm not gonna. This already sounds too deep.
Okay, all right. I'm just.
I like where your head's at, but it's like if we're Through the Breaching, like we're putting Emrakul in play. We don't need to overthink that one.
Yeah.
Like I said, we don't have a home for this card yet, but the text box is powerful enough and is doing enough things that it is something that Modern could be interested in down the line.
Sure. I have a feeling that if it lands anywhere, it's going to land in some dumb legacy combo deck.
That's fair.
That is my surmise. Next is Teshar. Wait, I gotta look it up. Teshar. Woo, nailed it first try. Teshar, Ancestors Apostle, 3 and a white for a 2/2 legendary bird cleric with flying. Obviously, if it was a bird that didn't have flying or questions, it'd be a hunting moa. Wasn't that there was like a big prehistoric bird from Ice Age or something? It was a bird, but it didn't fly.
I don't know. I know there's a Bronzebeak moa.
Yeah, there have been a number of moas, which I believe are basically like prehistoric ostriches.
All of the moas.
Like you do, moa tribal. I think they're all birds.
That deck sounds really bad.
I'm sure it's terrible. The text box on this is redonkulous. Whenever you cast a historic spell, return target creature card with converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Artifacts, legendaries, and sagas are historic. So this card gives you a free unearth every time you play an artifact.
Yeah, this card is broken in half in KCI. Completely busted in KCI. I mean, it is a.
You don't even need, like, that's the thing. You don't even need KCI because this goes infinite with Hangerback Walker and Walking Ballista on 0.
Yeah, I mean, it also goes infinite with Mox Opal.
So
literally, if you just have 2 Mox Opals, you make infinite mana.
Like, yeah, so.
It's creature?
It's creature. It's creature.
Okay, so it's not as busted as I thought it was, but it's still busted.
But like pick your win condition for having like infinite things go into your graveyard. There's already a ton of those. Having infinite creatures die. There's already a ton of those.
This card's awesome with Mirror Retriever.
Like, it just... If your opponent doesn't have graveyard hate, they lose on the spot.
You're kind of already like that against KCI, though. But yeah, this text box is super powerful. I don't know exactly how you're going to build KCI once this comes out, but I would be shocked if KCI list didn't at least include one of these going forward.
I honestly, like, I think this supplants the entire, like, KCI nonsense. Like, you literally do not even need any part of that doesn't involve any sack outlet, like, especially one that doesn't cost 4 mana, and, like, any creature dies effect. Like, you go Viscera Seer, anything, who cares, get this guy out, or, like, ramp into this, play a Viscera Seer and a Blood Artist, and then you cast Hangerback Walker for 0 100 times, kill your opponent. Done.
Yeah, I mean, that's a real thing.
So this card is nuts. The fact that it is still pre-ordering for $1.50 is ridiculous to me.
Wait, hold on, it didn't work like that. So it just returns when it plays, so, like, you can loop Hangerbacks once, but it doesn't come back to your hand.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, so it's like you could loop Hangerbacks. I think it works it's, like, very good with Mirror Retriever. That's the card it combos with. It's like, when that dies, it returns an artifact to your hand, so then, like, it just keeps going off. You just, like, keep using Mirror Retriever as a sack outlet, return the artifact, cast another one. Like, I think it's insane with the card Mirror Retriever, essentially.
Got it. Alright. Well, we can make it happen. But the Blood Artist thing still works in that scenario. Yeah,
Blood Artist would kill him too. I mean, it just gives you a ton of different ways to kill him in KCI, which is not something the deck was lacking, essentially, but the engine combo pieces is what the deck wanted more of, I guess. So
sure. So Broken Bond is one that you picked. I totally overlooked this. So want to talk about Broken Bond.
Yeah, I think Broken Bond is a very unassuming card. It looks like, something that maybe there would just be better of this kind of effects in Modern. And truth be told, there might be. Like, Nature's Claim might just be better because it costs less. But Broken Bond is a 1 for a sorcery. It says destroy target artifact or enchantment. You may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield. And there are a lot of decks where this would not be better than Naturalize, but in Primeval Titan decks specifically, decks that are interested in fetching specific lands that all are not very good against the card Blood Moon, this not only kills cards that are very good against you, like Blood Moon, it also ramps you and progresses your game plan. And even in spots where, like, you don't need necessarily to kill it's like, it's not that the game hinges on kill. Like, if you're playing against Blood Moon, you have to kill Blood Moon, you're going to lose, right? But if you're playing against Affinity, you don't have to kill any specific artifact. It's not the Naturalize that's super important, but you still want to Naturalize against those decks. You're happy to have it. But the fact that it progresses your game plan while, regressing theirs is very powerful. So, if you're trying to win a race against Affinity as the Valakut player, that can be really hard sometimes. But, here it's just like, all right, I'm going to kill your Cranial Plating. I'm going to put my Valakut into play. All of a sudden, you're way ahead. So, the card is very good in Primeval Titan decks specifically, I guess.
So, speaking of unassuming cards, Navigator's Compass, I think, is interesting. I don't know if it is better. Like, it's color fix. Okay, let me rewind. Navigator's Compass is a 1-mana artifact. When it enters the battlefield, you gain 3 life. And you can tap it until end of turn. Target land you control becomes the basic land type of your choice in addition to its other types. So there's like a couple of weird scenarios in which this is good. Incidentally, gaining 3 life is like, I guess, why not? Under a Blood Moon, you can make whatever color of mana you need. You can, same thing with, Spreading Seas, right? So like if somebody's plan is to try and like Spreading Seas you out of the game, which they can very much do, or like Blood Moon you, and you're just like, all I need, like I've got an Abrupt Decay in my hand, all I need is a black mana. Boom, tap this, make one of your mountains a swamp, Abrupt Decay, continue on. And you just like got like free 3 life for your trouble. I don't know if it's there, but it's really interesting to me. And it's just like, it's such a simple thing, but being able to basically make like a color of mana on demand is vaguely interesting.
No, I'm with you. And the fact that it ETBs and gains 3 life is relevant. Like, for 1 mana, gain 3 on an artifact is, something that there are decks in this format that would be interested in. Like, Lantern, for example, looping this could be a good way to beat Burn, which is a deck that they sometimes struggle with. I don't think there's an artifact that just says ETB gain 3 in Modern. Maybe there is, but the fact that it also...
Not for one mana.
Yeah, sure, not for 1 mana. And the fact that it fixes is, a little icing on the cake. Like, it can help you cast your Whir of Invention under a Blood Moon. So, there are decks that could be interested in this card, for sure.
Yep. Speaking of weird artifacts, Power Stone Shard. I think this one is probably a build around... because there are decks potentially that want a lot of colorless mana that also don't want to play Tron lands. So hear me out. Tron lands actually have a pretty significant deck building cost because you have to have all of them, like because you have to have one of each, you're sort of priced into playing a lot of suboptimal cards that you would not normally play, right? Like nobody would run Expedition Map if it didn't get you a specific land that you need to make 7 mana out of 3 lands. Something like Power Stone Shard gives decks the ability to generate like large amounts of colorless mana without having to commit to spending 16 cards out of their deck just to make that happen.
Yeah, no, I mean,
thoughts.
You're right. It could do that. It seems more busted to me in decks like KCI, where it's already a deck interested in having lots of colorless mana that doesn't run Tron lands, right? The fact that it can tap for more than 1 mana is essentially what's doing it, right? Where it's like,
right.
I don't know. There are cards that this could be ridiculously broken with, like I think Paradox Engine. It was from Kaladesh, maybe. Yeah. This card could be really busted with that. There are spots where this card is very powerful. It strikes me as being a little too expensive for Modern. Like if this card cost 2, I think it would probably be a very common Modern include. But at 3, it might be a touch too expensive. I don't know. We'll see. It's close though. It definitely is close.
So like I have in the past built like stacks style decks in Modern that have like Lodestone Golem and Thorn and Trinisphere, like all of those kinds of cards that you would find in like an old style stacks deck. One of the things that I always struggled with was you obviously at that point you have to run Tron lands in that deck. And one of the only, like in the original version of those decks, you were running stuff like Grim Monolith and Thran Dynamo, stuff like that. And obviously since those things don't exist in Modern, I was running, you have to run stuff like Palladium Mirror. There's a mirror that taps for 2 mana, for 2 colorless mana. And so like that was how you got into your bigger stuff to get your lock pieces together. This as a creature that doesn't die to Fatal Push, and B, something that generates way more mana, like once you have it sort of locked in, is very attractive to me in a deck like that currently is like looking for something. I also really like this with Mirage Mirror.
Is a way to copy an artifact? Sure.
Yeah. So like that's like, and also like not for nothing, I also think like Mirage Mirror is a really interesting sideboard card that maybe people should think about. Because it really covers a lot of bases, right? Like copy of target artifact, creature, enchantment, or land. That's kind of cool, right? Like there's a lot of creatures of your opponents that you would like to copy. There's a lot of, potentially artifacts, lands. I don't know. Mirage Mirror is neat. Mirage Mirror with Power Stone Shard is even neater. Bang. All right, talk about Teferi.
Okay.
I can just tune out while you talk about this like 5 mana blue white nonsense.
Oh my gosh, I cannot begin to explain to you how much I like this card.
No, I know how much you like this card, so that's why I'm gonna let you just gush over this completely unplayable card that you love specifically because it is expensive and it costs blue and white mana.
Well, okay, so before I start, I would like to just let the entire listening audience know that both Aaron and I agree this is the best card in the entire set.
I don't know what I wouldn't go that far.
Okay, but
you certainly think that.
I actually do think this is one of the best cards in the entire set, and I think that it's not broken, but for playing a fair deck, this is a card that blue and white decks have been sorely lacking, actually. So let me read the card for you first so you have an idea of what I'm getting at here. It is 3 colorless, a white and a blue, for Teferi, Hero of Dominaria. It's a legendary planeswalker with type Teferi. It says +1, draw a card, and then at the beginning of the next end step, untap 2 lands. It says -3, put target non-land permanent into its owner's library, third from the top. And it says -8, you get an emblem with, whenever you draw a card, exile target permanent and opponent controls. Okay. So, what's one rule we have about Modern? Is that you probably want cheap planeswalkers, and historically the best planeswalkers in Modern have cost 3. The 2 most dominant planeswalkers in Modern's history by a wide margin have been Liliana and Karn. Both are planeswalkers that cost 3 in the deck you play them in. Essentially, right?
Yep. No arguments here.
And recently we've seen other planeswalkers kind of come into the format and been very, very strong. With Liliana Last Hope, 3-mana walker. Gideon of the Trials has shown up, and while he hasn't been, world breaking or, earth shattering, he has put up results. Just he's even somewhat of a weaker planeswalker, but just solely based on being a 3-mana planeswalker, he's been very strong. And if
he's obnoxious.
He is obnoxious. He's annoying to play against. He doesn't generate value, but you play against him and all of a sudden you realize you're losing and Gideon's what's beating you, So anyway, Teferi is a 5-mana planeswalker. The CMC on him is 5 mana, but in the decks that play him, if you play him and plus him, he can be a 3-mana walker. He's a good proxy for a 3-mana walker. And if you look at decks like Blue-White Control and Jeskai, they have this issue where the Blue-White decks specifically don't really have a good card for answering any permanent. They've kind of been, they don't get the Kolaghan's command that, black-red decks get that can kind of destroy the artifacts that the decks will have trouble with. They don't get the Maelstrom Pulses or the Abrupt Decays. A lot of the blue-white decks have been playing Detention Sphere, which is a good card and certainly powerful, but it's sorcery speed, it's slow, it's a one-time answer for 3 mana. It just answers the thing once, and yes, it can be a blowout, it can answer Lingering Souls, it can do powerful things, but it also has the downside of getting removed and, having them get their permanent back, whatever it was. Say, You exile their Planeswalker with their Detention Sphere. All of a sudden, they go end step, Cryptic, bounce your Detention Sphere. I get my Planeswalker back, untap, use my Walker, whatever. So it has huge weaknesses. And Teferi, while being a Planeswalker, you can certainly attack him. He has the -3, put target non-land permanent into its owner's library third from the top. And especially in decks like Blue-White Control, where you have cards like Field of Ruin and Ghost Quarter and Path to Exile, where they kind of are incentivized to search their library and shuffle it away. It's almost like -3 exile target non-land permanent, which is awesome. It's a main deck answer to other Planeswalkers. It answers Ensnaring Bridge. It answers Wormcoil Engines. It answers World Breakers. It answers Bloodghast, if that's the card you're having problems with. It provides an answer to a lot of things. It answers like a choke. If you're a blue deck getting choked out, that's miserable. It can answer a Blood Moon, which is a big deal, right? And the fact that you can get him, like, his +1 to just draw a card is, that's serviceable. You're happy to draw a card off a Planeswalker. Just over time, it's just going to win you the game. And the -8, like, the +1 against most decks will win the game, but against decks like Tron, they can still just go over the top of you, or decks like, Lantern might still even just be able to lock you out. And the -8, you can emblem with whenever you draw a card, exile target permanent, is enough to win the game in any situation where you kind of get it going, right? Where it's like, you might be playing against Tron, you can kind of Field of Ruin and Spreading Seas them off Tron for so long, but eventually they'll get there and start casting your stuff. But if you get to -8 your Teferi and you start exiling other lands repeatedly every time you're drawing cards, well, it's going to end the game. So I think the versatility of the card combined with, being a 3-mana walker makes it powerful enough to be one of the better cards in the set. Going to have, some of the best long-term value. I'm not positive that it's top, or the actual top dog. I think it's pretty clearly a top 3, and I think it's going to immediately find home in Modern. I don't know. I don't think it's like a 4 of. I think it's maybe like 1, 2, 2 of, something like that. But I think decks that this could be a very good player for Jace decks that really haven't found their footing yet. So I think you should get ready for this one. You're going to be seeing it.
Maybe. I give that a very solid 25% chance of appearing as a one of in a blue-white control deck that should just be playing Elspeth's Sun's Champion as a win con.
Well, like those blue-white control decks already played Gideon Jura, right? Like they were already playing a one of Gideon, and I think this card's better than Gideon, in my opinion. They're different cards, but I think it is better than Gideon Jura.
All right, so the Planeswalker from this set that is actually going to see play, 4-mana Karn. 4-mana Karn. Oh boy. How could a colorless Planeswalker go bad? Oh, that's right. Every deck can play him.
Well, every deck could play him. Not every deck wants to play him.
So he's 4 mana for 5 loyalty. So he's already got that very difficult to kill with damage spells kind of thing that is sort of Karn's deal. I mean, he's a robot, I guess, whatever. Anyways, 4 mana, +1, reveal the top 2 cards of your library. An opponent chooses one of them, put that card into your hand, and exile the other with a silver counter on it. -1, put a card from your hand with a silver counter on it from exile into your hand. And -2, create a 0/0 colorless construct artifact creature token with this creature gets +1/+1 for each artifact you control. So it counts itself, so it's always going to be a 1/1. And then it's just like a little cranial plating with feet.
It's essentially the Master of Ethereum body.
Yes. Yep, that is correct. I'm sorry. It's more accurate.
Although it's going to do damage just like cranial plating. It's the same idea.
Right. So the nightmare scenario obviously is you put a cranial plating on this thing and then kill somebody.
Yep.
The card draw is fine. I mean, honestly, people are like, oh, your opponent always going to get to pick the worst card. But they're still giving you a card. You're still getting a card no matter what. And then you're getting one card on layaway. So eventually over the course of 2 turns, you will end up getting both cards if you want them. And so if they're both great, you drew 2 cards. If one of them is not good and the other one is good, you'll get it on suspend next turn. And if they're both good, they're both good. So, I don't know. Don't fill your deck with bad cards, and more often than not, this is going to work out in your favor.
Look, I think the +1 and the -1 are a lot worse than they look. Like, I think when people look at them, they think that kind of the way you described it, where like you're always going to get a card, and I think that you are right in that assessment. My problem with that is that just kind of the opportunity cost. Like, you paid 4 mana for this thing, and you get kind of bad card draw. But I agree with your initial assessment that this is the best play. This could be the best Planeswalker in the set, because that -2 is ridiculous in Modern. It's so powerful in multiple decks. And I think the +1 and the -1 are kind of just like tack-ons to make the -2 happen. But the -2 is honestly so strong in this format that the +1 and the -1 could just kind of be anything, and they're just going to be good. The fact that it is card advantage is just enough, I think. So,
yes. Also, notably, the construct token is adorable, and it is a sweet throwback to an old illustration for a card called Beast of Burden. I believe that's what it was called. Yes, Beast of Burden, which has an old chippy illustration of a big giant robot holding like a part of an obelisk with I guess it's probably a little girl, but it's hard to tell the scale. But I always thought it was just like a little kid that had a giant robot that carried stuff around. And so the construct token is like a takeoff of that, which is a nice little throwback, of which there are literal hundreds of in this set. So if you are an old person and you've been playing for a long time, you're going to see hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of little like references.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that is one of them.
Well, I think before we move on, like let's talk about a few homes for card, because I think this card's exciting. Like, I think there are going to be a couple decks that play it. I mean, the slam dunk right away spot you think about is Affinity, right? Where you're like, you know, maybe card's not exactly what you want in the main deck, but to me it strikes me as an awesome sideboard card for when you're getting Stony Silenced, when you're getting, you know, kind of ground out by Jeskai decks, essentially, or heavy, like, piles of removal decks. It's just awesome to just have a Planeswalker that's going to generate value, and it kills people quick, man. If you can cast this on turn 3 with a Mox Opal, and you just made a 6/6, and next turn you made another 6/6, like, how many 6/6, and they stack, too, so, like, you make a 6/6, then you make another one, and now they're both 7/7s, right? So it's like, how many of these do you need before your opponent's going to lose?
Not
and
many.
then like they have to deal with this giant creature because it's a giant creature coming at them, right? But at the same time, like, you have a Planeswalker, so they also have to deal with your Planeswalker. So that's really interesting. The fact that he starts at 5 means that Kolaghan's Command is not even a clean answer to him. Like, they can't just shatter the artifact it made and shock him. Like, he will still just be on 1.
Yep.
So that's really interesting. And then I also think he's an awesome card for, you know, like KCI or Lantern, as like a sideboard get you plan, right? Where it's like, you know, you're playing against KCI, you bring in this artifact hate, you bring in these Stony Silences, and then now all of a sudden they have a Karn, you don't have creature removal in your deck, and they have 2 like 12/12s. And you're just like, okay, I'm going to lose to those, because how are you beating these 12/12s, right?
I mean, Path, Terminate.
Sure, but and like absolutely, like, those cards would be good against them, but it's like, how many of those did you leave in your deck against KCI? It's like, yeah, you want to kill the Scrap Trawler, but that's like the only creature in their entire deck, and, you know.
Trick question, I wouldn't be playing against KCI.
I guess that's fair.
So, yeah, no, I mean, he literally, like, he could be a place that I would actually put him in a deck that I would actually play is, I think he would be great in Tezzerator. Like that seems like a slam dunk include.
Yeah, he's good with Tezzeret. I mean, he pairs very well with Tezzeret.
Blue Steel would actually do great with this guy. I mean, there's a lot of like fringe decks that he could elevate, and then a lot of, artifact, like literally put him in any artifact centric tiered deck, and like 2 of in the sideboard, slam dunk day one, no problem. May end up being like main deckable, maybe 1-1 split or like 1-2 split for decks that just don't have an answer for him.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you what, he really incentivizes, people to start playing more Ceremonious Rejections in their sideboard, because that is a card that's really good against Karn.
Yes, agree. All right,
actually, he's kind of sweet in Hollow One, too. You can just, like, play him in your Hollow One deck, and all of a sudden... Boom.
No, you know what card is sweet in Hollow One?
What?
Blade Splicer.
Blade Splicer is sweet in Hollow One.
Because Blade Splicer gives Hollow One first.
Yeah,
strike.
little known fact, Hollow One is a golem. And also little known fact, Tribal Golems is the best deck in Modern right now, so take that, Tribal Golem haters.
Sure. I don't know that it's even significant enough to have haters, but it certainly has doubters.
Yeah, I think everybody. You can't tell me that there's anybody who didn't doubt it, because Tribal Golems had a very, very small following. In fact, I think I was the only one. But
yes, it would be a following of one.
But now that people are getting, Faithless Looting into Cycle Street Wraith into 4 Hollow Ones, that is definitely Tribal Golems. You got 4 Golems coming at you on turn 1, so I'm counting it.
Yep, no, count it. I mean, I'm not going to deny you your day in the sun.
I've been calling Tribal Golems for a year, man, and it's finally here. I happen to hate the actual deck, but, I can take... I can take some solace in the fact that it made my prophecy come true.
Yes. All right. Card that I love that you hate, I'm going to talk about, which is Cabal Stronghold. Cabal Stronghold is fixed Cabal Coffers. Cabal Coffers is an old land that had 2 tap, add black to your mana pool for each swamp you control. The fixed version, Cabal Stronghold, does have an upside in the sense that it does tap for mana, which Cabal Coffers did not. The activated ability costs 3 and not 2, so that's obviously a cost. And the fixing, the part that they fixed, is it is 3 tap, add black for each basic swamp you control. One of the inset interactions is actually with Navigator's Compass, because it does change it into a basic land of your choice. So that's a thing. Or potentially a thing. But in mono black decks, I'm looking at this in 8-rack as a driver for Consume Spirit as a win condition, or like as another win condition. There are a couple of things where it's, you can only spend black mana. Obviously, like in devotion decks, as something like in mono black devotion, as something that works as like another Nykthos, or that synergizes with Nykthos. I am all about this. I'm all in. Like, there are many skeptics, including the person on the other end of this microphone, because it's not like a 4 of, right? Because it gets less good the more of them that you have in play, because it's one less basic swamp that you have in play, and it doesn't work with Urborg. So, there's a lot of what have yous, but I think it has a place. I think it's at least a one of in any mono black deck that has anything to do with like an arbitrarily large amount of mana. And so now refute me.
Look, I think this could have a home, but I think if you just do the math on how much black mana you're getting for each swamp you have. It just doesn't line up favorably with how fast the modern format is. I mean, that's my big issue with the card, is not that I don't think the text is powerful. I think it can be very powerful, but it just is too slow for Modern, in my opinion. It needs to really, really be built around, and then even if you built around it, I'm not sure it's better than other options. So, it might be. I mean, I could see people fighting home for it, but I don't know. It's just, the fact that you just need 5 or 6 lands in play before you're even turning a profit it's not good. It's not good, because, this is Modern. You could have 3 Tron lands in play and still be making way more mana than you could with this on 5, so...
Sure. Well, you're also assuming that that math is based on you tapping lands to generate the 3 mana to then generate the black mana. If you are paying that cost with some other type of mana, then it gets much better.
Sure. I mean, there are ways to break it, but it's just I don't think this is more powerful than other options. I think if you got a way to untap this, why are you not just untapping an Urza's Tower or something, And it's I don't know. In a lot of decks that would want this, it seems to me Nykthos trying to Nyx could be better. So, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but it is interesting.
I think it's a dovetail to Nykthos because, right, Nykthos requires you to already be ahead in the sense that you have permanents on the board. This allows you to come... This still functions when you're behind, right? This can get you back into a game that if you had just Nykthos available, you would lose because you're not generating any extra mana.
Sure, and that is a valuable point for it, but I don't know. I'm not sold. I just think it's a touch too not powerful for Modern, so...
It's fair.
We'll see what comes of it.
Merfolk Trickster is quite a card. There have been a number of these creature loses all abilities cards that have been kind of coming into their own pretty recently. Merfolk Trickster is definitely one that I think is playable on its own strengths, and then the fact that it comes stock with flash. So it's blue for a 2/2 Merfolk Wizard with flash, and when enters the battlefield, tap target creature an opponent controls, it loses all abilities until end of turn. So Tarmogoyf loses all of its abilities, becomes a 0/1. Emrakul, anything, right? Go as far up or down the food chain as you like. One of the things that I feel makes this at least maybe not better in a vacuum than Harbinger of Tides, which is the current blue hotness kind of card that Merfolk uses, is that this is good without an Ether Vial, and Harbinger of the Tides is not great without an Ether Vial.
Yeah, I mean, I think this could... Merfolk's already a tempo deck, so the bouncing versus tapping and losing abilities isn't necessarily super relevant. The fact that it can turn off a Baral Chief of Compliance is big news for Merfolk, because that was a card Merfolk had a lot of trouble with. I don't know. I think it's a shoo-in for the Merfolk deck. I think you might run 1 or 2. I don't think it's groundbreaking. It didn't switch the deck's tiers, but it will see play in Modern.
Yep. Damping Sphere, obviously, everybody's talking about it. I don't feel we need to say anything about it other than get a set.
Well, I actually would like to say something about it. I don't think it's as good as people think it is.
I don't think it's as good as people think it is either, but I think it is definitely a card that should be in your collection as a Modern player.
Well, 100% agree with that. It is doing things. I think people read the card and they're like, oh my gosh, this hoses Tron. Oh my gosh, this hoses Storm. It's really strong. And it's you could certainly convince me that there's a deck in Modern that is bad against Tron and it's bad against Storm and it wants this effect in its sideboard. And I think that exists, and I think this card will see play. But the abilities are narrow enough and they hose enough both ways that I don't think it's a lock for Modern, I guess. There are definitely decks that want this. I think it's very good in Aether Vial decks. There are Aether Vial decks that would be interested in this. One is Merfolk. Merfolk could be very interested in this, but it's a weird. So I don't know. It's such a weird combination of abilities that it's like, I don't know. It's strange. My initial thought was that the best home for it would be Jeskai, because that's like a deck. It's a deck I've played that was not great against Storm, although winnable, but it was also awful against Tron, and this would make Tron winnable. But then, like, the fact that it hoses your Snapcasters is kind of terrible. It doesn't really hose very many other lands outside of Tron lands in Modern. It can kind of hose. Yeah, there just aren't very many lands that tap for 2. Like, in the lands that do tap for 2, already tap for colorless, so it just makes them tap for 1 less, which can be enough to win, but it's not necessarily game breaking. Like, I don't know. I think the card's powerful, but right now, just Tron's not as good as it has been in the past, and Storm is very good, so it's awesome to have a sideboard hate card for Storm, but it's not something that Storm can't also play around, so I don't know. I think it's a card Modern players will want, but I don't think it's as, kind of groundbreaking and insane as some other people have made it out to be, I guess.
Okay, that's fair. You had Thran Temporal Gateway on here. It's a 4-mana legendary artifact. Has 4 tap. You may put a historic permanent card from your hand onto the battlefield. So artifacts, legendaries, and sagas. Notable because since planeswalkers are legendary now, you can use it to like cheat a planeswalker into play, even though that's not really. I know that has a ton of value because like all their abilities can only be activated sorcery speed anyways. So I guess you can get a. I don't even know. I'm trying to think of like some. I mean, you could certainly use this to put Emrakul into play, but like we already have Quicksilver Amulet and it doesn't see any play.
Well, I just thought this was better in Tron, where it's like you can put your Karn into play, you can put your Ugin into play, you can put your Ulamog, your Emrakul. I don't think the card's all that good, to be quite honest, but it certainly. You could find a home for it, I guess. That's all I'm getting at.
I think in Tron, if you were going to play this, you would play Planar Bridge instead.
Well, see, like, you would think, like, I think you're going too far over the top. Like, the reason I like this card in Tron was that it is kind of broken in that it cheats mana, right? But it also has the O-Stone effect of, like, being good against a Blood Moon, where it's like, you're playing against a Blood Moon deck, or even a Damping Sphere deck where you're not, like, making tons of mana. You, like, play this on 4, turn 5, you put your Karn into play, it answers the thing that's causing all the problems. Now, all of a sudden, you kind of go on to win, and then, like, the next turn you have is, like, ridiculous, where it's like, now I have a bunch of mana, I'm going to cast Karn, and I'm going to cheat Ugin into play, or whatever, so. Or cast Ulamog, cheat this in,
sure.
So. I don't know that it's going to fit in Tron. It probably is a little too weak and unnecessary in the deck, but there are things it's doing that could be the deck could find useful. So maybe.
I'm here for it. I'm not ready to dismiss it completely.
Also, if you have a way to untap it, it's kind of gross.
Sure. I mean, Voltaic Key is in the format.
Yeah, so I don't know.
As is Voltaic Servant. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, Voltaic Servant.
Yeah, Voltaic Servant.
That one I'm not as interested in, but it is cool too that it like makes the thing that's coming into play uncounterable. So like if you snuck this in, you can like sneak in a Krark Clan Ironworks uncounterably. Again, like I don't know that that's actually worth it, but it could be.
I can't imagine that is something that deck is interested in.
Probably not, but that is something that's part of the card. So
sure. So Voltaic Servant, however, I do want to talk about because it is such a cool card. So 2 mana for a 1/3 construct at the beginning of your end step, untap target artifact. Notable for a couple of reasons. One, its hand is a Voltaic Key. That is cool. There is a Thran Dynamo in the background. That is cool. The fact that you do not have to pay to untap the artifact is interesting to me. So I'm not ready to count this guy out. But I do certainly like that is something where I could be convinced that Thran Temporal, whatever that we were just talking about, then becomes way better. Right? I have 12 mana as Tron, or I have 8 mana as Tron, which they do on turn 4 regularly. I can go 4 mana, put my Planeswalker into play, main phase, activate it, and then untap it with like Voltaic Servant trigger, untap it, and then put my some legendary Eldrazi, of which there are tons, into play. It's like instant speed to be a surprise blocker. I'm pretty ready for that.
Yeah, I don't know. This card just doesn't strike me as powerful enough, but it could be.
Like I said, the fact that it just happens is the potential thing for me. Man, let's see what else. Mox Amber, obviously, like we talked at length about it during the spoiler episode, so I don't think we need to like go nuts there.
I just want to say, I think the natural home for this is going to be Grizzlebrand decks. Sure, that's my intuition.
I mean, there's no reason not to play it there. Cast down. So cast down is basically it's go for the throat, except that it doesn't kill legendary creatures. I think it is any deck that would play go for the throat would also play this deck or this card. I think that this will have a home probably as like an alternative to like any deck that used to play Victim of Night before Gurmag Angler got printed. I think plays this, which is more than you would think, because for a long time Victim of Night in like heavy black base decks really was like a marquee removal spell, because it hit everything. So now I think this kind of goes into that slot, because Go for the Throat right now is basically unplayable.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's just going to switch off with Go for the Throat for a while on, metagame dependent which one's better. I think it's definitely better than Go for the Throat right now, so if you're looking for a 2-mana Doomblade, this is probably the best one currently.
Yes, strong agree. You had Forebear's Blade in here? I
think Forebear's Blade is interesting. It's a powerful effect in token-style decks. It's very good with the card Lingering Souls. It is a 3-mana artifact with equip 3, and it says it gives target creature +3/+0 and trample, I believe. Might also give vigilance, but definitely trample. And it says also when equipped creature dies, attach it to another creature you control. Which, yeah, vigilance and trample. So the fact that it equips for 0 if your creature died is what makes me think it could be modern playable. +3/+0 vigilance and trample is a lot on a 1/1. Even like if you just made 4/1 flying vigilance trample with your Lingering Soul token, that if they kill, you just make another 4/1 flying vigilance token, is powerful. I don't think there's necessarily a home for it yet. It's probably not necessarily right yet. But I could definitely see this card being modern playable. That's all I want to say. I think it's the best equipment in the set.
Well, I guess it functions as like a non-graveyard Sword of the Meek.
Yep.
So I guess in that scenario, I'm ready for it.
Well, also like if you put it on like a Bloodghast, like yeah, the vigilance is worse because it doesn't really have defense, but it's like they have to kill that card. Like, what are they going to do? Like, they're gonna not kill it, and then it just attaches to something else. Like, it is certainly a nuisance. And I'm not sure if it's modern playable yet, but it's a lot. +3/+0 and trample on a creature. That's a lot. Like, Raincore is a very, very strong modern card, and this is more expensive, but also more powerful Raincore, kind of, so.
Yeah. No, I would put this with Thopter Foundry and any other artifact.
Sure.
Because you only need one other artifact to get it going.
Yeah, that's fair. It could work with Thopter Foundry for sure.
So I think you go like Pentad Prism into Thopter Foundry and then sack the Pentad Prism, get the dude, equip this, and then you're off to the races, right? Because then you just... Oh, no, it doesn't work because you can't sack the token to Thopter Foundry.
It's not the same thing with sort of
it's non-token artifact. All right, so I guess it kind of like... Nah, no, never mind. I rescind my earlier statement. I think this is an aggressively medium card.
Well, it doesn't really have combo potential, but I think it pairs really well with like the card Lingering Souls.
Sure.
Just like we'll get people
I'm
dead.
not...
You know, lets them trade more effectively. Like it also incentivizes. Like you equip it to a soul, you attack, and then it's like, what are they going to do? Are they going to attack with their hollow one? Because then you trade it and it just makes another 4/1 right away. Like it lets Lingering Souls trade because it gives them vigilance. Like I think the card is powerful.
Okay. I will give you that. It is a potentially powerful effect. But like you have to stick it first, right? Like it has to survive and you have to pay to equip it to the first creature.
Sure.
And then it gets going.
Yeah. No, I mean it's slow. I don't know. Good and fair, Mears. Dude, let's hit on what could be the most broken card in the entire set.
Yeah, and this one really, so we talked about this yesterday, and between the time that we talked about it yesterday and today, there was an article that was published that talked about what we're going to talk about. And obviously, like, not that we're like luminaries, that we're the only ones that thought of this, but I had originally tagged this card just because Natural Affinity is a card that I have played before and has like interesting ramifications for a number of fringe decks. And Sylvan Awakening is an effect like that, turns all of your lands into creatures. But it does so at sorcery speed, which is less good. It's 2 and a green for sorcery. Until your next turn, all lands you control become 2/2 elemental creatures with reach, indestructible, and haste. And they're still lands. So I was just like playing this as a fair card with like overrun potential, and like there are certainly times when this is just going to be like 3 mana Alpha Strike win the game. And then you brought up its actual real home.
Yep. What about... So, making your lands into 2/2s can be good. I could see scenarios, especially when they're indestructible, that they could be powerful, right? And they have haste, like... You could get in there, you can do some damage. Maybe it's like a late game win con, right? But what if you paired this with a card that... untapped all of your creatures anytime you cast an instant or sorcery, and then also gave them +1/+1. So essentially, every time you cast an instant or sorcery, it means all your lands untap, so you can tap them all before make mana. Then you cast an instant or sorcery, untap them, and then they get +1/+1. So you go from 2/2 to 3/3, and then you cast another instant or sorcery, and you keep doing this, and they keep getting gigantic and making infinite mana. And what if that card also, for no reason, just let you loot every time you did this so that you kept finding spells? And you might say, Zach, I don't think that card exists, but I will tell you that Jeskai Ascendancy is a modern power level card that has seen play and won modern tournaments. Yep. And this pairs perfectly with that card. It even has the curve of, turn 1, Bird and or Noble Hierarch. Turn 2, cast Jeskai Ascendancy. Turn 3, cast Sylvan Awakening, win the game. Just go Sylvan Awakening.
Well, cast Sylvan Awakening and then opt or something.
Yep, and
because you have to cast a spell to like kick it off.
Yep. Well, it has you do, but
because the Jeskai Ascendancy trigger doesn't. The Jeskai Ascendancy trigger happens first.
Yeah, but if you had a Noble Hierarch in play, this actually untaps the Hierarch. So it's just ridiculous. Like with Ascendancy.
Really?
It's just it's so outrageous how good this card is. And
it takes a lot of the like jank factor out, like, because the thing that held Jeskai Ascendancy combo back is that like it had so many parts that like had to work.
You needed to find like
and
you needed like a discard, so you can discard your Fate Stitcher. You need to get your Fate Stitcher in play. It's just like,
yeah, and so it's just like the fact that it wins occasionally and has won tournaments before doesn't make it any less of a nonsense deck. So this actually turns it into a like curve out 3-card combo deck, which is a very realistic.
Well, it's not even 3 cards. It's just 2 cards. It's just discard and Jeskai Ascendancy together with just the rest of your deck. Just win the game, right? It's like you have to build in cantrips and just cantrips essentially. But like, if that's the deck building cost, then it just works perfectly, right? Because it's like your cantrips find these cards, and then once you find these cards, the cantrips win the game. It's pretty dumb, honestly, like how well this pairs with that card. Like, I think this might just immediately push Jeskai Ascendancy back into the limelight. It could make it, high tier 2, 1.5, even like a tier 1 deck all of a sudden, just because this card exists.
There you go. Yeah, I'm not looking forward to playing against.
Yeah, that's one of those I'm playing against eggs type miserable experiences where your opponent draws and goes through their entire deck and then kills you.
Yep.
But that is that's what Modern does.
Sometimes. So one of the decks that I think this set creates is like a blue-red wizard tribal counterburn style deck where you run Lightning Bolt, you run Snapcaster Mage and Grim Lavamancer, and you also play Wizard's Retort, which is the cancel that becomes counterspell if you control a wizard, and Wizard's Lightning, which is the open fire, I guess, that becomes a lightning bolt if you control a wizard. There are already tons of very good wizards, like Snapcaster, Grim Lavamancer, Delver, Stormchaser Mage. Like, these are all cards that are not embarrassing to play, and sometimes, like, many of them are Modern staples. The rest of them are not embarrassing cards that you wouldn't play on their own. And then just being able to have 8 lightning bolts and 4 counterspells, plus all of the other like conditionally decent counterspells that Modern already has is like it's great, right? Like 10 counterspells, 12 wizards, 12 burn spells, cantrips and lands. That's it. That's the deck. Done.
Yeah, I don't know if that's immediately Modern power level. It's playing very powerful cards. I think it could get there. It's seriously. You're approaching what Legacy Delver looks like, albeit you're missing Daze and Force of Will. But the Modern format is also missing those cards. You don't have to play against them, so I don't know. It could be there. It's good. I don't think
I've played Delver with Disrupting Shoal before, and it has in the past, like Rug Delver, granted it had Probe, but like Rug Delver in the past with Disrupting Shoal has been a very powerful deck.
Sure. And I think this could be there, but I don't think it's like that easy. Like, boom, this is just the deck. I think these cards are Modern playable, and they also work super well with Snapcaster, that maybe it makes a new deck, or maybe it just slots into a deck that already is there, right? Like, maybe it does make a Wizards deck, or maybe you just are playing Grixis now, or you have K Command and Snapcaster Mage, and then you also play like Wizard's Retort and Wizard's Lightning to go with your bolts. I don't know.
Sure.
I don't know if they'll do that, but I will say that I am more excited for Wizard's Retort than Wizard's Lightning. Just because, like, the payoff for Wizard's Lightning is that you get a Lightning Bolt, which is a card you could already play. The payoff for Wizard's Retort is that you get Counterspell, which is not a card you can play in Modern. So, to me, I'm more excited for Wizard's Retort, but I think they're both powerful, and they're of a Modern power level.
Sure. I had just some sort of like housekeeping ones that I think are gonna be solid like role players. Get You Lava Runner I really like. It's a 1 mana 1/2 with haste that gets +1/+0 if you have two instant or sorceries in your yard. So it's like a very, very low, basically 0 deck building costs, like extra Goblin Guide in burn. You know, like I'm ready. I'm ready for him. I think he just slots into a bunch of decks. Dauntless Bodyguard is a 1 mana
2/1.
Oh, it is a 2/1. Look at that. So it's a Savannah Lion. It is a human and a knight, which have become extraordinarily relevant in the past like 2 weeks. Apparently, like knights are now all over the place. As Dauntless Bodyguard enters the battlefield, choose another creature you control. Sacrifice Dauntless Bodyguard. The chosen creature gains indestructible until end of turn. This is just like a good card, right? Like this is your, if you're playing a deck where like you have a card that is the quarterback and your opponent is like, I can win the game if I sack the quarterback. You just like add a layer on top of that.
Well, and so to me, this card is an automatic include in Modern. It is immediately like a 1 or 2 of in Humans sideboard. Humans is probably the best deck in Modern right now, if not the best deck, top 3. And it relies very strongly on certain cards staying in play. And you have a bunch of different cards in your deck that are good in different matchups, essentially, and it even plays Phantasmal Image to get more of those cards in those matchups, right? And like something that was very evident to me when I was playing Mono White Hate Bears was there were matchups where if you kept Thalia in play, you won the game, and if Thalia did not stay in play, you died. It's just how the matchup worked. Like Storm, for instance, that was one of those matchups. And you would play Burnt and Forge Tender, so that when they bolt your Thalia, you could counter the bolt and then let Thalia continue to do her work. And unfortunately for humans, they can play Burnt and Forge Tender, but it is not a human, and it's harder for them to cast. Dauntless Bodyguard is a human, and it can protect Thalia. And it also pressures well. It triggers all their other stuff. It's not the most exciting card, but I think this is going to immediately find a home in Modern.
Okay, so let me lay this on you. Dauntless Bodyguard with Selfless Spirit.
What does that do?
So normally, if you have a Selfless Spirit in play, your opponent just kills the Selfless Spirit.
Sure.
And then, like, wraths your board. This way, they have to kill Bodyguard and then kill the Selfless Spirit before they can wrath your board.
Got it. So we're building a house of cards. We're going to keep building it up.
I mean, right? Go hard on what you lose to.
It works, no?
If you lose to sweepers, then like protect the thing at 0 deck building cost.
Sure.
Protect the thing that protects the rest of your
board. No, I mean, and that more than like that being powerful is just like a statement to this card's power is that like you can protect the thing that matters in any given matchup, right? So you're playing against the Supreme Verdict deck. I'm going to protect the Selfless Spirit, right? It's like, and like we talked about earlier, Humans is kind of by itself holding back all these, one card name combo decks like Crack Clan and Goryo's Vengeance because of Meddling Mage. Well, in all of those matchups, it'd be really sweet if you could protect your Meddling Mage, right?
Yep, seems good. All right, so now there's two sections that sort of warrant their own discussion, and those are sagas and goblins. The sagas are really interesting. And a lot of the inexpensive ones, like obviously in Modern, we're probably looking for something that is like, for most decks, like 4 mana is pretty much the ceiling of something that we're looking for. That doesn't have like an immediate win. You know, like generally if you're paying 5 mana, you're going to want to win the game with that card, or like pretty darn close to it. So there's a couple of these that are low enough that they are at least worth considering. I personally like, so the 2 mana ones are Song of Freyalise, which is 1 and a green. It turns the first 2 counters, turn all of your creatures into mana dorks, and then the third one puts a counter on all the creatures you control, and they get vigilance, trample, and indestructible just until the end of turn. They keep the counter, but they lose those things afterwards. Interesting, kind of pokey. I don't know, like a deck that would want this effect already plays enough mana dorks that they're not looking for that. And then to put it in elves, it's not an elf, and elves already has like at least two cards that do that exact same thing better. So like, is it cool? Yes. Could you play it? Yes. I don't know where it goes. And I think there's already better stuff. And that was kind of like where we came to with Flame of Keld, which is the red one for 2 mana. So it's 1 a red, discard your hand. Then next turn you draw 2 cards. And then the turn after that, if a red source you control would deal damage to a permanent or player, it deals that much damage plus 2. And then it goes away. Like this is like worse Dangerous Wager. I've been warming up to Dangerous Wager lately, which is like discard your hand and draw 2 cards, but it's instant speed for the same cost. So once again, I don't know of a deck that is really looking for very slow discard effects that also include draws. And then Triumph of Gerard, I actually do like. And this is one that you pointed out, because originally I'd sort of glazed over it. But like Triumph of Gerard and History of Benalia, I think are both.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that it's better
but in decks that are looking for this sort of thing, which is most like tokens decks, Night Tribal, any deck that has Gideon Aloe of Zendikar. So Triumph of Gerard is 2 mana, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control with the greatest power. There's 1 and 2. And then the last one is target creature you control with the greatest power gains flying, first strike, and lifelink until end of turn. I mean, it's good, right? Like incremental value. History of Benalia is 3 mana. It makes a 2/2 knight with vigilance twice, and then the last one is knights you control get +2/+1 until end of turn. So you can sort of like, you can play this, make a knight, cast 4 mana Gideon, make a knight, and then make another knight with History of Benalia, and then next turn swing with like knights and Gideon, and all your knights get +2/+1. It's just like this huge chunk of damage that comes in. Seems strong. You know, I mean, that's that I think it, and plus like goes without saying, like they every single one of the arts on all of the sagas is insane. Like I don't know if
17
I could have
on
done
turn
a better
5.
job.
Just 2 cards. Yeah, I mean, that's
so, like,
powerful.
Those 4, or like the 2 white ones are probably playable at 2 and 3. And then the other ones, Antiquities War and Time of Ice, I think, are the other 2, the blue ones. Because you actually brought up Antiquities War. I had originally sort of glossed over it. So why don't you do Antiquities War, and then I'll do Time of Ice, and then we will move on to goblins.
Yeah, so Antiquities War to me strikes me as like an affinity sideboard card, where it's a hard to answer permanent type in that it's an enchantment. When you cast it early, it gets card advantage, and then the ultimate, if you will, on it turns all your artifacts into 5/5 creatures until end of turn. It just kind of wins the game immediately. If you have a bunch of artifacts in play and they're just kind of useless and your opponent just didn't really care about them, like, you know, Springleaf Drum and a Darksteel Citadel. You have some flying artifacts like a Blinkmoth Nexus and an Inkmoth Nexus or whatever. Well, when this ultimates, and all of them become 5/5s, it just kills your opponent very easily. So, you know, the first time you play it, it gets you some card advantage. It nets you a couple artifacts, helps you find maybe a Cranial Plating or a
Antiquities
Ravager
War
or what have
3
you.
and a blue.
And then all of a sudden it kills your opponent.
Ability,
so,
I
don't think that this is necessarily better than Karn because it has a colored mana requirement, but
your hand.
I could certainly see a metagame where it is, and I think it's worth keeping on the radar for Affinity.
You're going to hit on something, and then even in Affinity or like any of the decks that play Darksteel, like you can hit a land off of it too, which is great. And then the 3 is all your artifacts become creatures with base power and toughness 5/5. So if you've been putting Steel Overseer counters on your Inkmoth Nexus, and then you fire it up before this thing goes off, it becomes a 5/5, still has its counters, and you just smash one hit, win the game. You know, anything Cranial Plating plus this, it's just very good. Time of Ice is the other one that I really like. It is also 3 and a blue. For the first 2 counters are tap target creature doesn't untap during the next it doesn't untap while you control Time of Ice. So it's not just the next untap step. It's so like the first turn you get one guy down, and then he stays down, and you get a second guy, and that guy stays down, and then the third one is return all tapped creatures to their owner's hands. So you kind of like essentially deprive them of, like, you're definitely going to get to bounce at least 2, and then you sort of deny them an attack step unless everything they have has vigilance. Because if they do attack you, all their stuff is going to get bounced. Obviously there are a ton of decks. So taking turns, obviously, like, is very interested in this. Even I've seen some of the blue control decks will run like a Giga Drowse out of the side. Like this with Giga Drowse is nuts. This with a well-timed exhaustion. Even like Cryptic, right? Play this, TikTok, do your thing, right? Tap your team, because that's unsummon your board, right? Is like I guess you could play Etherize, which would do the same thing kind of, but it would still require them to attack. So like the thing with Cryptic tap
your team, draw a card,
is it
boom.
only buys you 1 turn. And with this,
unsummon your board,
tap bounces their entire board, and that is nuts. So Time of Ice, I like it. The other ones are like maybe have homes in like fringe decks that I will definitely make. Like don't worry about it. Like I already have a Follow the Thran deck ready in my brain. Spoiler alert, it's Restore Balance with Tron. But because like you need to somehow get to 6 mana. We'll get there. So those are the sagas. Like I said, they are all gorgeous. Sure. Yeah. So now, oh man, the goblins. We might have to like split this off into like the goblin portion of the episode, because like we're already pushing like 2 hours.
They look good. I think overall they're a little overcosted,
but who knows?
Modern.
I'll just plow through.
I think they'll see some standard play.
We get Goblin War Chief. Obviously, we've already talked about. It's a cost reducer that gives your creatures haste. They then revealed that Skirk Prospector was going to also be in the set.
Sure.
Skirk Prospector is another Onslaught block reprint. It is a 1-mana goblin that allows you to sacrifice a goblin and you get a red mana. Oh, baby. This card has a lot of history. There was an extended goblins deck that was... it had more sack outlets. Like we don't have Goblin Sledder, which is actually an insane card that I play in Pauper Goblins that allows you to sack a goblin and give any creature +1/+1 until end of turn. So like that card's busted, like crazy busted. But Skirk Prospector lets you exchange 1 resource for another resource at instant speed with no drawback. And that is something that is rare. It is in fact the same thing that makes Krark-Clan Ironworks so powerful, is you get to exchange one resource for another at instant speed with no downside. Now granted, Krark-Clan Ironworks nets you mana, but this also gives you die triggers. So the way historically that this has been abused was there was another extended deck weirdly called Dirty Kitty, which doesn't have anything to do with the deck. It was just like a goof that they made, like a comment that they made during the commentary on the match. This is the reason that like the Fecundity buyout happened last week, is when Skirk Prospector came out, or when Skirk Prospector got spoiled, people were like, oh, Combo Goblins is back. And basically what that means is basically you make a bunch of goblins, and this deck was insanely busted. It had Seething Song and Rite of Flame, and there's an old card called Brightstone Ritual that was a single mana that added red mana to your mana pool for every goblin you controlled, and then Empty the Warrens and Grapeshot. So it was basically like a weird creature storm deck that could also generate a ton of mana and cast a bunch of spells. And with Fecundity in play, which is it's 2 and a green. Every time a creature dies, controller draws a card. It's a commander card, which is why it's had 4 printings. But and it is symmetrical too. So like if you're going to do this, you kind of have to be ready to go off the turn that you play it. Otherwise, your opponent's going to get the same benefit. Sometimes it's going to matter. Sometimes it's going to not matter. So there are a lot of tools that are missing. We don't have Goblin Matron. We don't have Goblin Sharpshooter, which was like every time a goblin dies, it's a pinger, and then every time a goblin dies, you untap it. So you basically just like machine gun your opponent by sacking a bunch of your guys, making more tokens, Empty the Warrens, combo kill. And then Goblin Sledder, like I talked about. That said, a lot of these cards have analogs in Modern. Jim Davis, there actually been a couple of really good articles that came out just over the past couple days that talk about the sort of combo goblins that is possible based on the cards that are in Modern. And also notably, back in the day, Jim Davis actually did win a bunch of stuff with like Legacy Goblins. He won a PTQ with Extended Goblins. So he's a goblin guy. And so he put out a Star City article, and his first run on the deck is 4 Bushwhackers, 4 Mog Fanatic, 4 Mog War Marshal, 4 Skirk Prospector, 18 lands, 4 Fecundity, 4 Manamorphose, 4 Dragon Fodder, 4 Empty the Warrens, 4 Faithless Looting, 2 Hordling Outburst, and 4 Infernal Plunge, which probably nobody has ever heard of. Infernal Plunge is it's Dark Ritual, but it's red, and an additional cost, you have to sack a creature. So you pay a mana, you get 3 mana, you have to sacrifice a creature. That's fine. In a deck where you are making a ton of tokens, whatever, it doesn't matter. And it also gives you a draw trigger. So you basically just fuel, all of these spells, try and get your storm count up. Like even Empty the Warrens for like 4, if you do it early enough, is pretty great, right? Like we've already seen 8 power on turn 2 or 3, figure it out. That's a very real possibility with this deck. So that's the sort of combo version. I don't know if that's the best version, but it does exist, and you will probably have to play against it. There is an infinite damage combo with Kiki Jiki and Skirk Prospector and Lightning Crafter. That did exist previously, but you had to go off color to get the sack outlet. So the other one that came out, or that people sort of like got turned on to, was Murderous Redcap with Metallic Mimic and now Skirk Prospector. I'm actually pretty proud of myself because I went back in my group chat where I was talking about sort of like possible goblins decks, and a month ago, almost to the day, a month ago, I went, I can put Metallic Mimic and Viscera Seer in with Murderous Redcap, and I can make Mulira combo, but just with goblins, or like goblins and a vampire. So now that I can do it with all goblins, I think it actually does get there, because it also generates mana, which is kind of interesting. So it's literally just, it's a Mulira combo without Mulira in a single color. You have a Metallic Mimic in play. Every time a creature of whatever type comes into play, it gets a +1/+1 counter. You sack it to Skirk Prospector, you get a red mana. Redcap persist, he comes back, he gets a counter, and you just keep doing that. At the end, you also have infinite mana. So it's not just the damage from Redcap, you also have the mana, that there's obviously like a bazillion things you can do with it. So I'm super into that. I think that is the first combo build that I'm going to try. Also notable, Goblin Chain Whirler is a unit. Like, just on stats, he's great. Red. Like, we don't get 3 mana 3/3s with no drawback in goblins. Like, we don't even get 2 mana 2/2s with no drawbacks usually. So to have a 3/3 that has first strike, that also hits your entire opponent's board, pings everything on your opponent's board, including them and a planeswalker, for ETB. There's plenty of ways to like abuse this guy with bounce, give him death touch, like just, kill all your lingering souls, kill all your whatever, everything in affinity. So Chain Whirler is dope. I will definitely be playing a ton of them. There's 100 other things with goblins. Like, I'm literally gonna have to do another episode that's just goblins. I was gonna say,
if you keep talking about it, I'm gonna fall asleep, man. we gotta move on.
Okay,
we can do another episode, but geez,
no, it is, man, so deep, so many goblins, so much goblin stuff. Anyways, that said, that is our wrap on Dominaria. I think the only thing that we forgot was Vicious Offering, which I know you're not into. I'm super into it. It's 1 black for disfigure, and you can kick it by sacrificing a creature, and it becomes a dismember. I like it. I know that you're just like, play dismember, and you're not 100% wrong. But it's cool.
I think it could have a place in Modern. It's kind of good with the card Young Pyromancer, but yeah, like you said,
Super good with Young Pyromancer.
Like I said, it's mostly just worse than Dismember.
Yes. Strong agree. Okay. Whew. Before we get to the Spice Rack, you can visit us on Facebook at facebook.com/Turn1Thoughtseize, all spelled out. You can follow us on Twitter. I'm at T1Thoughtseize. Zach is at A22EN. You can watch a stream at twitch.tv/T1Thoughtseize, sponsored by our friends at Card Hoarder. You can see our YouTube videos at youtube.com/Turn1Thoughtseize, all spelled out. You can read my columns at blog.cardkingdom.com. You can become a member of the Thoughtseize Cabal at patreon.com/Turn1Thoughtseize, all spelled out. And of course, you can see all of our content on turn1thoughtseize.com. The Spice Rack card this week brought to you by our own Zach Allen, Thing in the Ice. Take it away.
Yeah, I don't know that Thing in the Ice is that spicy because it was in the quarterfinals of the last Modern Pro Tour. But with all these Boggle decks popping up, and all these freaking Bloodghast and Humans decks, all these go wide creature strategies, it's really nice to give your mono blue deck a main deck sweeper that can bounce hexproof creatures, as it turns out, or bounce Gurmag Anglers, or bounce Hollow Ones, make them have to re-discard their Flamewake Phoenixes and their Bloodghast. So, I've been playing some Thing in the Ice, and I think the card's really good right now, and I think you guys should try it out.
Yep.
I mean, that's basically it. It's also really sweet. You flip it over and tell them to put everything back in their hand. It's kind of cool.
That's right. It's doubly good against Boggles because it doesn't bounce your Spellskite that you're already using to win the game.
And relevantly, it doesn't bounce Bedlam Reveler either, which I have found is not a card you typically want to bounce.
Yes, Bedlam Reveler, and also Phyrexian Revoker if you're going down that road.
True, yeah.
So there you go. A lot of relevant horrors out there. There's a small amount of relevant horrors, but they are very relevant in the matches that they exist in. That is all. We will talk to you next time. Thank you so much for listening. We are out.
See you guys.